Welcome to Alternative Investor. Radio Frequency Technology Group Alaris Holdings reported financial results for the year ended June, which was severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent hard lockdown, leading to a 24% decrease in headline earnings per share. Listed on the Altex, the group has undergone a major transformation in terms of operational and geographic span since its 2008 listing as Poynting Holdings. I spoke to CEO Juergen Dresel about the entire business and the prospects for the company. Have a look.
I think we certainly had in mind pre-COVID that we would be growing again. That was kind of the plan, and things looked good until then really COVID hit. Then we had to, of course, abide the law and close down. I think particularly here in South Africa at Alaris Antennas for about 6 weeks, and that certainly transferred some of the revenue we had in mind to still get executed this reporting financial year, which ends in June. So we're hoping to get it all still done, but it shifted out to July. So unfortunately our revenue was then flat, so we had about a 1% drop in revenue, 245 last year, 243 this year, and our profit then took a significant hit. We took about 24% lower than the previous period. But as I said, I mean, if we would have had not COVID, there would have been no doubt that we would have grown again, which of course would have been very nice. But under the considering the circumstances, I think we still did quite well as a group overall. It was quite interesting to see as well the COVID scenario, how it was handled in the various different jurisdictions we're active in. So here in South Africa it was the hardest. There was 6 weeks we couldn't operate. In Finland there was no lockdown per se. You know, they continued, of course, social distancing. People started working from home, but overall quite okay. And in the US actually quite similarly. So there was no hard lockdown. People continued. Of course, there was a thinning out of people at the workplace. People worked from home and so forth. But yeah, I think it was quite overall. I think we still upbeat, for the new financial year now, and we're hoping we're moving more and more to a normal kind of scenario again, where things will be back to normal type of thing. Yeah.
Okay. How did the different divisions or businesses perform, and which ones were the standout for you, even though we're in this particularly difficult time?
Yeah. So as I said, Alaris Antennas would have grown, if we wouldn't have had that lockdown. So we were very excited about that because there was a bit of a kind of flattening, and so we put a lot of emphasis trying to increase that. So yeah, I think Alaris Antennas would have done well if the COVID wouldn't have been. So that certainly was standing out. I think in Finland it was sort of business as normal, kind of. There was one particular project which also shifted out, but it was not necessarily COVID related. It's a NATO funded kind of project, so the funding shifted out, so that's why we didn't quite make budget there, but otherwise quite good. In the US, the reality there was that in each state has kind of its own regulations around COVID. So it's not from a federal point of view managed. It's done in the different states, and that also caused a lot of kind of uncertainties and funny stuff.
For the viewers who may not necessarily understand the antenna business and how competitive is it, perhaps you can give us the lay of the land in terms of what that's like.
Right. So we operate as a client-centric organization that applies for all the subsidiaries. So that means we typically pick kind of niche domains we kind of operate in. We listen then very carefully to what the customer really requires, and then customize our products for their particular needs. So bespoke design in kind of scenarios are very, very important to us. So we would like to be seen as the competent, trusted advisor by our customers. And so the competition, I mean, our biggest differentiator is that we are prepared and happy to customize. Most of our competitors would not necessarily like to do that. So that means also that we're really not in the commoditized kind of space, but in a niche space. And that's where we're comfortable with and we're successful with. So that's, I think, the biggest differentiator for us. And I think if I mention a couple of products, where what we are particularly proud of, that would be, we have developed a direction finding antenna for a submarine, for example. So that was exciting stuff. It makes the engineers' hearts pounding harder. And then we have certainly done also a couple of direction finding antenna systems for ships, I mean, for naval kind of vessels. A lot of kind of land-based mast mount kind of antennas there, and typically we always work with the system integrators there very closely together in order to get these kind of products into their systems.
I had a conversation with another CEO who also has a company listed on the Altex, and what he found was that in the industry that they're in, you don't typically find a lot of South African fund managers, portfolio managers, or analysts who understand the nature of their business. So it was far easier to get analysts who are based in Australia, for instance, because the industry he's in mirrors what's happening in Australia. So you tend to find a lot of people who understand the investment case for his particular company. In your industry, do you find that a lot of analysts do understand your business and they understand the investment case behind it? What's your experience like as a company listed on the Altex?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there is certainly in our mind a bit of challenges. I mean, typically what you find here in the country is that people, companies which sort of in a similar space to us, they would operate as value-added resellers. So in other words, they bring in their products from overseas and then they glue them kind of together as a system, and then that's what they were to sell. For us, it's the opposite. We actually develop our own IP, so that's really what makes us, I think, different in terms of the South African context. Of course, a company which is a value-added reseller and a company which would develop their own IP would typically enjoy different kind of multiples on their results. However, that's not necessarily what we experience. So it is a bit of a challenging kind of scenario for us. And I think in addition, the problem is, of course, that we are not particularly large. So the size is another challenge why I think we wouldn't, or we don't see the valuation which we would like to see on the stock exchange.
Well, that's a wrap from the News at 1 team. We're back tomorrow with Books on Point. Goodbye.